Alright, this is the green sheet, tables and equations, station 1, and this is learning target is I can create tables to build equations. So here's the problem. A professional designer charges a $100 design fee and $50 per room. So these are going to be important pieces of our problem, so I'm going to just kind of highlight them. Fill in the table below and answer the questions. So notice the number of rooms is our independent variable. So that's the number that we're going to be multiplying by with whatever the cost is. So looking at our two numbers, this was a design fee and this is the cost per room. So I think this is going to be our number that we're multiplying by, and that word per sometimes is a clue that you're going to be using it. Not always, but in a lot of cases per tells you that this is a number that goes with the coefficient. So for my problem, you multiply the cost per room and then you add the $100 fee. So 50 times 100 is 0, or excuse me, 50 times 0 is 0 plus 100 is 100. 50 times 1 plus 100, that gives me 150. 50 times 5, because notice it's a 5, plus 100, gives me 350. 50 times 7 plus 100 gives me 450. And so my rule here is 50 times the number of rooms, so 50n, plus 100 for the fee. And that's going to tell me the earnings that the professional designer makes. So looking at this information, the constant, the number that's constantly being added in each problem is the 100. It's $100. And that represents the design fee. The variable in this problem is n, that's the letter, and that represents the number of rooms being designed. And the coefficient of the variable is 50, which represents the cost per room. So we have our problem, we translate it into a table, and then we're interpreting the pieces of our table so it makes sense to us. So let's try it again. Your total transportation costs for a trip will be $300 for the plane ride, plus, so that $300 is important, plus $250 per day. And again, I see that per word, which signals to me you're multiplying. And that charges for the rental car. Fill in the table to answer the questions. So I know it's going to cost me $300 for the plane. And then I'm adding the $2,050 times the number of days that I'm traveling. So for that first one, it's going to give me $341. Here we go again, $300 for the plane fee plus the 4 days I'm driving. That's going to equal $382. $300 plus the $2,050 times 6, it's $423. $300 for the plane fee plus $2,050 times 8 days is $464. $300 plus $2,050 times 10 days is $505. So finally, the rule here is you're taking 300 and you're adding the cost times the day, the number of days. So here we have some true or false questions based on our problem. So it says true or false. 300 is the coefficient. So remember, coefficient, that's when you have a number with a variable, and it's a number in front. So looking at this, the coefficient really should be $2,050. So that's false. 2050N represents the costs of renting the car for N days. That's true. So N just represents a number of days. So in the formula, N is the number of days. So that's going to be true. N represents the cost for 1 day. That's false. We just said that N represents the cost for N days, not just 1 day. 300 is the constant. That's true. Because if you look at our table, 300 was that number we were adding every single time to our transportation costs. Alright, let's flip it over to the back. For this one, we have a completed table and some analysis. And there's a couple errors. So it says find the error. A taxi driver charges an initial fee of $3 plus $1.25 per mile driven. There are 4 errors in the table below. Find them and correct them. So we have miles driven, 0, 5, 10, N. We have the total cost being $1.25 times the number of miles plus $3 for the fee. So it says the constant is 3, which represents the initial one-time fee. So let's look at our table. The constant is being added in 2 of the cases, but I see some errors in the other parts of the table. So right away the total cost initially it's going to be more than $0, right? Because no matter what, the taxi driver charges an initial fee of $3. So for right now, we can say when 0 miles are driven, there is an initial fee. And so the answer then should be $3 initially. Even if you don't drive anywhere, it's going to cost you $3 based on the problem. Take a look at our equation here. If you see, we're doing the math right in these first 2 problems. We're taking the number of miles and we're multiplying it by the cost per mile driven. Same thing happens here. So then there's a mistake here, right? Because here it says that 3 is being multiplied, and that's not what we're doing. We're multiplying by $1.25 and adding 3. So the error is that the constant and the coefficient value are flipped. So really the equation should read 3 for your constant plus $1.25 for the coefficient times N equals C. Okay, let's see if we can find the other errors. We found 2 of them, so that was our second error. We said this was okay because 3 is the initial one-time fee. I see an error here. The variable is, remember a variable always has to be a letter. And the coefficient is always a number. So these 2 are right away I can tell are wrong, and their meanings are switched as well. So the variable must be a letter. And the variable is N, which represents the miles driven. And then for 4, the other error we found was that the coefficient must be a number. And the coefficient is $1.25, which represents the cost per mile. Okay, that's station 1. We'll start working on station 2 here in a minute. Just make sure you get all this part down.